So I bought the cheapest 4U server case on eBay, and so let's do a build with it and let's see if it's worth it. And a special thank you to all my patrons, who without your support this channel would not be possible. And if you haven't already, please think about becoming a patron and supporting the channel you love. So hi, I'm TechnoDadLife, and we make technology simplified. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at the 4U server case that I bought on eBay, which was the absolute cheapest 4U server case I could find. And not only did I get a case, but I also got rails. And so the rails actually, if you've never bought rails, a lot of times the rails can be as expensive as the case. So let's take a look at see what we got. So here are the rails. Unfortunately for me, these rails do not fit my rack because I got an audio rack which is shorter. Next, here is the case, and it's a pretty basic case. And you can insert drives or DVDs in there, and then it has room for drives over here. Now the one thing that's special about this case is that it has more screws in it than any other case I've ever found. So let's take a look. To actually open this up, there are some thumb screws here on the back, which is great. And then when you first get the case, there's actually screws on each side here, but I took them out and immediately lost them, so they're not there anymore. Then we just slide this off, and voila. So there are fans. So this is the first interesting thing about this case, are the fans. So we have to take those off. And so the thing about these fans, because they don't plug into the motherboard, they actually plug into the power supply. Whenever you turn on the server, your motherboard will give you a warning that there's no fans installed on the system. Now you can see already I've installed a motherboard, a power supply, some hard drives, and a graphics card. So what I'd like to do is just sort of explain some things that I found when I built with this server and if it's actually worth it. So first thing you'll notice is that there are no rounded edges anywhere. Oh, there's one right there. But pretty much everything is a straight edge, not too sharp, so that's good. Also you'll notice that it has this extra bar across here. And so this bar looks like it's designed to hold down a graphics card, but here we have a normal size graphics card, and this is actually too long to actually use, because what happens is that you can see these tabs here. There's just a tiny bit of room that they can stand up before it actually hits the top of the case. So let's just say this case was not designed by somebody who builds computers probably. They have all the basics here, but you'll see as we go along that some things don't really make a lot of sense. So now what we have over here, this is where the hard drives are stored. And then over here you can have DVD ROM drives or other things. And so what I did is I installed a hot swappable tray for my hard drives, so then I use where the DVD ROM drives go for the hard drives, which I sort of showed at the beginning. I'll show again in a second when we show the front. Now if you look where the hard drives go, you can see that there's actually room for 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But as you notice, it comes, especially this one, if you have a normal size motherboard, this is a micro ATX motherboard, the drives actually stick out even over that. So then once you put in your power cable and your data cable, this is going to be a mess, and there's not going to be any room for a graphics card. Like I said, not very well thought out, but you can fit a lot of drives in here. So instead, I'm moving my drives in here with the with the hot swappable trays. And then I have a SSD on top there. Now, if we look at the front here, there is room to put a fan, but there's a big caveat here. So in order to attach the fan, though, you have to take out about 22 screws. And I'll show you about that. So the first thing you need to do is actually take out these screws, so then you can actually mount the fan here. If you have your hard drives here, though, you can't, there's not enough room for a fan there also. Once you've done that, there are 3 screws that hold each of these panels, these wings on the side. You take that off, and then underneath there are more screws. Next, what you need to do is take off these 3 screws on the bottom, and then there is another screw right here in the middle that you have to take off. And then that takes this outside piece. So there's actually 3 layers here. So this outside piece wraps around, and then there's another box on the inside here which the fan actually attaches to. But in order to screw the fan in, you have to take off the outside of this box, which are another 6 or 8 screws, including one that's attached here. And then actually to screw the fan in, then you take off these screws on both sides and then pull it out. So whoever designed this case never thought somebody would put a fan in it, obviously. Once that's done, then you put all the screws back again, and then you put it back together. The last part is adding all these screws back in. Oh, I forgot to mention, because I'm doing this at the office, so I did all of that, and I got to the part to attach the fan. The holes, though, that are there need to be deburred. I don't have a drill here. I wanted to finish building the case, so I put it all back together, installed everything so it works. But I'm going to take all those screws out again, bring a drill to the office, drill out those holes, so then I can actually add a fan. And then I'm going to plug that fan into the motherboard, so then it doesn't give an error every time I start the computer. After I looked at the fan, then I installed the hot swappable drive bay, which, as you can see here, there is not a lot of room here. So I actually used a modular power supply, which is good and bad in this instance. So I was able to add a few things like these connectors for the fans. With modular power supplies, they actually stick out further than normal power supplies when they have the integrated wires into them. So what that meant is there is like 0 room here between our fan and our wires for the hot swappable drive bay. The other thing with modular wires is they tend to be longer, and so then I had to snake those around, and that they go underneath this hard drive bay enclosure. So let's just say I spent a lot of time trying to figure out where those wires could go. In order to put the hot swappable tray in here, basically I had to take out all these screws here, pull this out, and then there was an inner piece that was screwed into this that then I had to take out also. And then I put in the hot swappable drive bay, then had to put in all these screws again. Did I say there was a lot of screws in this case? And then as an OS drive, I just have a cheap SSD here. This actually has Windows on it right now because this is a former Windows computer. I'm going to swap this out for a 128 gig hard drive for the OS, and then all the data is going to go on the disk inside. You don't have to install the hot swappable drive base. I just found a good price on eBay. Somebody had it and didn't want it for whatever reason, so I got it for about half price. And so if we open this up, there is our hot swappable drive base, and you just pull them out like this, and the drives come out like that. And so I just took a bunch of drives that I had. These are 1 gigabyte drives, stuffed them in here. On the front, just normal lights, reset, start, reset button. Nothing too exciting here. Also, it has a nice lock on the front, but there is one thing about this lock. So basically nice, you can open and close it, but if you don't have the lock actually locked, the door just falls open with the slightest movement there. So you always have to have the key in there. Unless you want this securely locked, then you would take this. But then if you lose the key, you can't get to your hot swappable drive bay anymore. So I just always leave it in there. So how much did I pay for this server case? Basically not that much. So I'll show you eBay. I paid $25 for this plus shipping. And so when I bought this case, shipping was like $60, so it was like $85 total. But now if you look at the ad, you can see that shipping is only $36, so it's a approximately $62 case for a brand new case, which you cannot beat price-wise. Now, having said that, like I said, it also comes with rails. And again, the rails can be, depending on your server, can be almost as expensive as the case. So was this worth it? I'd actually say yes, even though it's been a major pain in the butt case, because it's a good case to get started with if you want to build your own server. So if we look at all my components in here, these were all from other computers. So for me, this was a very cheap build to build because everything was used except for the case. Everything else I had on hand or I cannibalized other computers for. If you're interested in these cases, they're everywhere, but the cheapest ones are on eBay, and I'll leave you a link to the eBay seller where I got it from, who is the absolute rock bottom cheapest out of this, and he includes the server rails. So why I'm doing this video today is because this is the start of my series on building the ultimate home server. So we'll be starting with the hardware, which is what we have here, and then we'll be gradually adding programs to it to make the ultimate home server. And so if you like this video, make sure you like, and if you haven't already, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.